Hi guys, if you haven't began to follow me, please do just like and subscribe. This is Charlotte Pastor Caldwell. This is the final installment on Women Should Lead. Women are leaders. Now, the final part is about a female apostle, and there probably were more, but those got deleted from the record. So if you are a scholar of sacred text the way I am, you look at Romans 16:7, and there is the mention of a lady by the name of Junia. Junia was a female apostle. And the same Paul, Apostle Paul that we discussed, that wrote all the texts about women can't talk and women shouldn't lead men and women need to go home and raise whatever questions they have to their husbands. The same Apostle Paul in this text is acknowledging a female apostle who is out there doing the work. Now, that text reads like this: Greet Atronicus and Junia, my relatives who were in prison with me. So this woman went to jail with Paul also. They are prominent among the apostles, and they were in Christ before I was. So she was an apostle before he was. So when you get this notion and you have, as a woman, if you feel like you're called to lead in any way spiritually, do it. Don't let, because you were brought up in the Americas, in the Christian church, where women are constantly dumbed down and told that they can't lead a man, they can't teach a man. Don't fall for that. Now, this lady is not spoken of because for many years it was removed from the Bibles. They didn't even want you to know she existed. And they don't want you to know those that are powers that be, that are part of the patriarchy. Remember, I told you yesterday that Constantine, through the Nicene Council, was upholding and, dare I say, meshing into the spiritual movement patriarchy in a way that was very unhealthy for everyone. There were many, many, many women who were leaders, apostles, who went about doing those things that were ascribed to those who were followers of the way. Remember, there were others that began to call those people that followed that pattern of holiness and sacredness. That's just simply doing good, loving other people the way you love yourself. That is the pattern that was being followed. But then when the Roman government came in and seized the spiritual movement and dumbed it down, this is why we have what we have as what we call church. This is why so many people are fleeing the church. In my first post, I told you for 60 years or longer, there has been zero church growth. No one's hearing the good news and saying, I believe. People are just migrating and going to different churches. They get angry here, they go over there. Part of that is because you can't live on lies. You can't base your spirituality on untruths and expect to have spiritual encounters. Now, if you know you're female and you were not called to do anything but sit and learn, then sit and learn the sacred text. But don't dare buy into the notion that the creator of everyone, irregardless of your religion, if you're called to lead and you are a female, then the argument should be with God, not with you. So, for almost 2,000 years, this lady's name was removed from the text, which is why I said yesterday that when you go over to the book of Revelation and it says, if you add to or take away from this book, these writings, every curse in the book is going to be on you. You're going to Hades, hell. All of these things are going to happen to you. Since 325 before Common Era, they have been adding and taking away, sometimes burning what was true sacred text so that the people didn't have access to it. So the spiritual freedom that one needs is to understand that your relationship and the dynamics, and dare I say the dialectic exchange you have with the sacred and holy higher heavens, is on you. I did not give my power away. And many, many times men have said to me, a woman shouldn't be leading a man. And I'm like, well, get out of the way. There is so much there to wrestle with in the text concerning leadership. As I said yesterday, many times these type of things were written because in Ephesus or Ephesians, in that book, what was happening in that city was the temples of the female deities, Isis, Diana. All of those deities were there. And the women were the leaders. Now, I'm sure they had temples for Zeus and all of the male deities, but the priests there were not always women. But in the female deities, they were. And these women knew their spirituality. They knew their rituals and things like that. So when you get, Junia, an apostle that is just written out of the text, it makes me think, so how many other women were written out of the text? And I remind you of the work of Dr. Schrader from Duke University, who proved that the story of Martha and Mary was really just the story of Mary, but they did not want Mary to be prominent. Mary Magdalene, they did not want her to be prominent in the text. Now, I was frustrated for many, many, many years with the endless arguments about why women shouldn't teach. You should only teach women. And I had been over an entire district of women. But I recognized that men needed to learn some things too. And the endless arguments that went on and on and on. And the only way to cure myself of the frustration was for me to put my mind, to center my mind on study. Because in my spirit, I felt like this is not right. To walk in a place where you're being spiritual and you're wanting to come in contact with holy, sanctified things, not people, things that are unseen in the higher heavens. And people would prevent you. Women some places couldn't hold the communion, all type of things. A woman could not stand, in the pulpit. If she was speaking, she had to stand on the floor. That still happens today. So if there's a complaint, my complaint is, why do you still put up with it? I stopped putting up with it. I started studying and learning all the things that were already there, hidden in plain sight. If I were to go to the sacred text for my Muslim brothers and sisters, Muhammad, who did most of the writing, was a married man. And his wife was wealthy. And from what I understand historically through the short teachings I had, it was because of the wealth of his wife that he was able to sit and hear from the Archangel Gabriel and do all the great writings that culminate in the Qumran. So how can you remove feminine energy from that? You shouldn't. You are just as important as a man to the higher heavens, to the God of gods. So the removing of Junia, the apostle Junia, some places they're going to lie to you and say that this was a man. But the name is written in feminine language. Just like I tell you, Ruach HaKodesh, when you read that and you go look at it, it says feminine. Hebrews can be very specific as far as gender. When you go to, in the beginning, it was Elohim, the sons of God. And I know Christians will rush and say, that was the Trinity. Well, the Trinity was penned by Tertullian many, many, many years later. So as you see, they're trying to work out things for you that you should be working out for yourself. So women are called to lead and to be leaders. We were never meant to be dumbed down spiritually. We were meant to be right there, shoulder to shoulder with our brothers, doing the hard spiritual work. So if you go and you begin to study, you will see places where it says, this was a man, not a woman. So that means then you have to go over to what we call Koine Greek. So the Greek that is spoken now is not the same as the Koine Greek. You have to begin to look at those things and understand that Junia is a female and had been in prison with the other apostles, was doing the hard work of travel, all those things, the mission work. She was doing that hard work. And until, especially in the Americas, until we can begin to tell the truth about the text, we will have the problems that we have. The young people, they're not having any of that. No, they're not. They want the truth and the whole truth. And the truth is, the text has been so tampered with that is scary. Just to hide women away, women can only have that salvation moment in childbirth. One of the most painful things that can happen to a woman. Some women it's not as painful. I know for me it was very, very painful. But that's my salvation. That's all God's got for me. God's got nothing else for me but pain. Well, what kind of God is that? But you tell me that's a loving God. God cares for you. But I only experience some of the salvation in childbirth. Really? It's not true. So the things that are told, or, Paul in that writing with Timothy talks about how Adam was deceived. Eve was the one deceived. Let me correct that. Eve was the one deceived, not Adam. Well, then that makes Adam very thick, doesn't it? Because old boy was standing right there. He was right there when this serpent or whatever it was saying, did God indeed say you're not? And she said, well, I'm not supposed to touch or eat. He didn't say, wait a minute. The main thing is that you're not to eat of this tree. He didn't speak up. He didn't say a word. If she was getting it wrong and he was supposed to be the one leading, why didn't he lead? He followed. He did not lead. So when I see my sister Junia, the apostle Junia, and the fact that they ripped her from the text, or I see Mary Magdalene, who has a very, interesting relationship with Yeshua, and they split her. She was so powerful they could make two characters out of her. So I'm yet to see the real story. If that is the story, that means Mary was, sitting at his feet. And she was also up doing things. She understood the better part of being close and having fellowship, as well as doing the hard work, which most women do. So in my lifetime, I would like to see, especially the Christian church, no longer follow the dictates of dumbing women down. And so many men feel that way. And women do as well, because they've been spiritually, mentally engineered to act outside of their own interest. And that's some of the problem we have in this country. So many women will act against their own interests as if they're doing God a favor by upholding men and forgetting about themselves. God never meant for us to forget about ourselves. Spiritually, physically, anything. We are just as loved and adored as men. So as you begin to look at some of what I put on my channel, understand I'm not trying to talk anyone into making women pastors, anything. I'm not trying to talk anyone into doing anything. But I'm telling you, you're wrong. It's never been your choice over who is supposed to lead and guide. It's always been God's choice, never yours. They gave her one verse, and I guarantee you there were others that were pulled out of that text. Now, it is difficult to get your hands on the original text. You have all these different companies that translate the text, and they put it in slights everywhere. It was written in ways to exclude even African descended people, which is why I speak up when I see images and things, and it's all European images. That's not how people looked during this time in that place. It was when it came to the Roman government, that was the Europeans beginning to come into that area. But before then, it was not. And you only have to go to France or Germany or some of the places, and even Russia, to see the ethnicity was of African descended people. So the lies are not only written, but they're visual lies. Because this is the shaping of your consciousness. This is mental engineering, to the point that your spirit is engineered in a way that you will think, I am so right and I am so holy. I always let a man go first. And you're wrong. And what was given to you to do, you don't want to be put in the higher heavens, the recycle bin. And I know many Christians do not believe in reincarnation. I know that. But I'm here to tell you that many of us have been so deceived in what we are taught and how we are taught. Now, Charlotte Pastor Caldwell, I get in trouble all the time for what I teach. I'm not going to teach people a lie. I'm not there to teach people to pay money. That's not what I'm there for. My call is to wake up the lions, not the sheep. We've been playing the game of being mealy-mouthed sheep for long enough. So if you get a chance, go over to Romans and look at that text. And some of the other texts I was giving you out of Timothy, I didn't go to too many places, but there are too many places where it's as if women are excluded, and they were not. There were just as many women following Yeshua all around the region as there were men. They're not going to tell you that. You have to begin to grab on to the text and the things that Constantine, the emperor of Rome, tried to get rid of. So if you want some good reading, the Nag Hammadi Library is a good place to begin. And then you can look up Dr. Elizabeth Schrader and look at her dissertation and her writings on Mary being split into two people, so she wasn't prominent and dominant in the text. Also, for me, when you look at the Christian text, you'll see sometimes, well, that was Mary, the mother of Jesus. No, that was Mary Magdalene. Those things are done intentionally to confuse and to make women feel as if they were not part. They had a little part, but no, they didn't have that much. So my introduction to you of the Apostle Junia, go look her up. There's not a lot said about her because they probably deleted it, for one thing, which is sad. Romans 16:7. But you only have to go through the Hebrew text, the Tanakh, to see the prominence of women. Now, the Jewish women were not the priest, the high priest of the temple or things like that, but they were scribes. They were in there working. They were, doing all type of things. But their law is specific about who is going to be the high priest and why. So when we get over to New Testament Christian text, that's where the waters get murky, and it's clear through the one we call Yeshua, the intentions. You never heard him say, a woman cannot lead a man. Never. That came from Paul. And I think Paul was trying to just say, in this city, this is the way we need to practice it until everybody gets on the same playing field. For me, I then raised the question, why could you not answer if these women were priests of Diana or Isis or other deities? Artemis, why then could you not answer the questions they had? Because it was just coming from another spiritual perspective. Instead of doing that, they shut women down. And that would be a question for Paul. Paul, why didn't you just deal with, what they were raising and coalesce their spiritual understanding into what was going on? Because it very well could have been the same thing, just different deity. And I'm going to add, during this time when Constantine takes over the spiritual movement of the people who were just followers of the way of Yeshua, Yeshua was not a deity. Proclaimed he was the Son of God, but he was not a deity. It's in the meetings that Constantine had that they decided they need to deify Yeshua. So these are things that you're not going to hear in Sunday school. You're not going to hear from the pulpit, but they decided he would be a deity. And then as you come on down through hundreds of years, Tertullian comes out and begins to say, Creator, Son, Spirit, Trinity. That was not anything that was known. It's not in any ancient Hebrew text that I have ever seen. So when you look at the Elohim, the sons of God, there are many. But Yeshua, according to the text, is different because he then allowed the DNA coding that God came up with to create a body for him. Now, when you look at his lineage, all of the women in his lineage, from Ruth to Rahab to Tamar, you look at all these women. Tamar literally had a baby with her father-in-law. Rahab was running a brothel. Ruth was a Moabite woman. Moabite people, they came from the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, where Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, and the angels took Lot, his wife, and 2 daughters out to safety. They instructed them, do not look back on the city. Well, Lot's wife couldn't help herself. She looked back. She turned into a pillar of salt, according to the text. And they went on up into the mountains, getting away because it was just a huge ball of fire and destruction that was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is another lie that's taught. They will tell you that God destroyed that place because of the LGBTQAI community. Not true. They were very vicious people. When you walked up to the city, things were hanging on the wall. People's flesh was hanging on the wall. They would literally fillet people. Very cruel people. So Lot and his daughters, after the wife turns into salt, go up into the mountains and they're in a cave. And the daughters are like, well, it looks like we're not going to be getting married, and we're the only people left on earth. The destruction was so much that they literally thought they were the only people on earth. And they get old dad drunk and they begin to have children with dad. So the eldest daughter had the Ammonites. The baby daughter had the Moabites. Ruth was a Moabite. She is in the genealogy of Yeshua. So when you see those women in there, do a little rundown on those women. So if they were not hiding it in the genealogy, interesting. Most of the time, the genealogy will not show the women. I think it's Luke that shows most of the women. Matthew does too, but I think Luke may show most of the women in his layout of genealogy. He was coming from the genealogy of Mary, Yeshua's father. Matthew came from the genealogy of Joseph, the man that Mary married. So take a look at these things. Don't let people tell you. That's why I said, when you come on to this platform, you will see a lot of women tarot card readers, mystics that are talking with Lord Metatron, which is another thing that Christians don't know about Metatron at all, and they should. This deep spiritual things truly are not taught. I search things out. So if I were even today, after being 12 years as a pastor, teach on Metatron because he's not found in what is considered sacred text, yeah, it may not be well received. But that's not my call to do. I have my community of spiritual um, empaths and tarot card readers and diviners that I can fellowship with about those high angels that are not mentioned. And in fact, most Christians will talk about high angelic beings that aren't even named in their sacred text. But if you bring up Lord Metatron, boy, that really sets people to spinning. But as women, I want you to be encouraged. Don't hide the fact that you have leadership skills. Don't let anyone talk you out of it through sacred text or anything else. You were born to lead, and you should. Don't let anyone take that from you. Again, Charlotte Pastor Caldwell on my channel. Like and subscribe. Share the video. If you have any questions, go in the comments and raise whatever question you need to. But this is part 3, all right, about Apostle Junia. I told you you can find where she's mentioned once in Romans 16:7. And then think about the fact that they ripped that out of the text for almost 2,000 years and then they put it back. Interesting, huh? You guys check it out. All right, bye.